Welcome to another episode of Law Dog Corvette. Today we're going to be talking about the steering column. By far, the most complicated piece of the Corvette so far. Now, of course, this is a convertible, or I like to call it a roadster. And when we got it, it had been out in the weather and our steering column was completely trash. We could have redid the whole thing, but I decided to go ahead and buy a reconditioned steering column. But when we got it, there was a problem. This piece right there, this is what you turn your thumb. It gives you leverage actually to turn the key. It's kind of an important piece, and it was broke. Now, our old steering column did have the lock still in it. And the lock, because it's so deep in the steering column, works just fine. So today we are going to change out this ignition cylinder lock and put this cylinder lock in its place. We're going to see how this goes. All right, here we go. Now, when we got the steering column, it was like this. So the only thing that was on here was the horn button, and of course the horn button just pops off. The actual steering wheel is not on here. The steering wheel actually bolts on underneath this. So first thing you do is take this first bracket off, and this is the bracket that's going to hold on the horn button. One thing you definitely want to do when you do this is be very careful with what you're pulling off of this thing. We have a little tray here to keep all of our parts nice and neat. All right, and so that looks like that. And then this right here is your actual horn button. That's what activates your horn right there. All right, and this sits like that, and you press the horn and it activates the horn button right there. All right, next piece to come off is this bad boy, and I'm gonna guess that looks like a 3/4. This one actually turned out to be a 7/8. Now, I will say, since this was a rebuilt steering column, none of these bolts are very tight. All right, this is where you need this steering wheel puller. Now, you can rent these at your local Advance or AutoZone, but it's also a nice thing to have. You also don't need a specific puller per se. You can get a regular puller, and you got to make sure your bolt patterns match up, and that's it right there. And so the way the steering wheel puller works is you just basically take the two screws that match, make sure you have the washers on there. You're then going to take those and put them in here. I mean, you want to get some thread on there because there's going to be a lot of pressure on this, but you also don't need these to be super tight. And then this bad boy just fits there. And this is where you are going to need your wrench, and that looks like a 5/8 if I had to guess. It is a 5/8. All you're going to do is put pressure here, slow and steady, and it's going to pull this piece off. And It's hardly on there. Turns out I didn't need much of the puller at all. Next step is take this cover off. And this is a steering column. This is a fixed column off of a 1974. But I believe this column fixed was the same from 1968 until 74, I think 75, they changed it. All right, this is the steering wheel locking mechanism. This little pin right here will lock your steering wheel. So when you turn your ignition, the on position, you can see the steering wheel now is free, but then when you take it off, you move it and click, there it's locked. In order to get this piece out, you actually have to get this little ring off. And it's right there. So I find it's a little easier to do with the steering wheel in the lock position because you can get a little leverage in there. And you're just going to try to get a little screwdriver and then there we go. And this piece comes out. That was our culprit. That piece comes off. And that's your horn mechanism. So when this is your contact, and then when you push your horn in, it makes contact with there, which makes contact with there, and turns your horn on. All right, next, that little spring, and we are down to the turn signal mechanism, which you've got lots of screws here. And you have to turn the turn signal in order to get to all the screws. Because you see, you can't get to that screw right there with the turn signal in the position it's in right now. So we're gonna all right, with the turn signal loose, this whole piece will come out. Now, you've got look under here. This wire right here is where all your turn signals are gonna connect to the wiring harness. And there's no slack in here, but there is slack here. So you take your harness and you pull it off of the steering column, and this gives you the slack you need to pull this up. So kind of feed it there. See how it comes right out? There we go. Now, for our job, we don't need to pull the wires all the way out because we're only going in here. And here is our next job. And this is a doozy. All right, I'm gonna try to get this light just right here. This is the, right behind right there is the cylinder for the ignition. And look with me very closely. There is a hole right there. You have to take a screwdriver a thin, very small screwdriver, and you got to press down. And let me show you what you're pressing on my other lock. You're pressing this piece right here. That's what holds the cylinder lock into place. So as you press here, you're going to then be able to pull the cylinder out like that. But you have to press this little piece. Now, sometimes there's some casting, thin casting right there, and that hole is not present. Right there you can see ours is. Sometimes if you're doing it for the first time, you have to scrape away some of the metal casting remnants to reveal that hole. And so here's what it looks like. You're gonna you want to feel it. Felt like I had it. There it is. That's gotta be it. I felt it go in. Okay. There it is. Boom! And there it is. So you have to push that down. Now, I had the key in the on position, and I don't know if that had to be on there in the on position, or was it just nice to have it in the on position, give me some leverage, because I didn't have this piece to pull on. So when I had the key in the on position, the key wouldn't come out, and it gave me something to pull onto. So I don't know if you needed to do that or not. So there's that one out. And then here's this one in. And of course I have it in the on position, but not all the way in the start position. So all right. That is how you replace a cylinder lock in a 1974 Corvette Roadster. That job took me about 7 or 8 minutes to do, and it's not that hard if you know what you're doing, and you have to understand that little hole right there is the only way you're going to get the cylinder lock out. So to put it all together, you're just going to go in reverse, and we just changed that cylinder lock. All right, thanks for watching Law Dog Corvette. This was an interesting job. This was not the easiest job to do, I understand that, but don't be scared of the steering column. It's not that complicated. Anyways, if you like what you see, please subscribe and like the channel. And if you have any comments, please comment. I will answer them all. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.